Far to the east of Westeros, the ancestors of the nomadic warrior race known as the Dothraki migrated through the tall and treacherous mountains of central Essos, possibly under pressure from the Jogos Nhai or other Far Eastern powers. And while these ancestors of the Dothraki eventually succeeded, many of them died along the way, leaving their bones scattered throughout what came to be called the Bone Mountains. During the Century of Blood following the doom of Valyria, the proud and skilled warriors of the Dothraki united under the powerful ruler Khal Mengo, counseled by his mother, the Witch Queen Doshi. Following Khal Mengo, they went on a brutal campaign west, destroying a number of ancient kingdoms and cultures, including the cities of Sarnor, who in the beginning were unwilling to unify to defend themselves, instead taking advantage of the impending threat to fight amongst themselves, sometimes allying with the Dothraki to take down rivals within their own culture. As a result, they were left vulnerable and over the years lost a number of cities, including the fabled waterfall city of Sathar, which fell to Khal Mengo's son, Khal Moro. The Sarnori king of Gornath then married Moro's daughter, allying together to destroy the city of Kasath. However, Moro was later killed and replaced by Cohor, followed by the murder of the king at the hands of his Dothraki wife, who despised the man, allowing Cohor to take the daughter of Moro for himself and destroy Gornath. Horo was eventually killed as well, and with his death, the Dothraki splintered into smaller factions, now competing with each other as they continued to conquer the area. Finally, after losing so many of their cities, the Sarnori united under the last High King, Mazer Alexi, but it was too late, as the Dothraki proved victorious at the Field of Crows, where the armies of Khal Harrow, Khal Kano, Khal Loso the Lame, and Khal Zako led a combined army of 80,000 horsemen against 6,000 scythed chariots with 10,000 armored riders behind them, as well as 10,000 light horsemen and 100,000 spearmen and slingers. Despite the Sarnori advantage in numbers, they overcommitted their forces after a feigned retreat by the warriors of Khal Harrow, who died on the battlefield. Too late did the Sarnori realize it was a trap when the other Khals led their cavalry to surround the enemy army, crushing them and killing Mazer Alexi, 6 lesser kings, and more than 70 lords and heroes. After their victory, the Dothraki moved on to sack and burn the remaining Sarnori cities, leaving only the small port city of Sath, which survived through the support of nearby powers like Ibn and Lorath. In addition to the fall of Sarnor, the Dothraki conquered the Valyrian colony of Assaria, as well as the Ibbenese settlements making up the kingdom of Ifekavron. However, the Ibbenese fought back, winning several victories and destroying the great army of Khal Onko. But eventually, the relentless Dothraki sacked the city of Ibish under Khal Skoro, and then again under Khal Rogo. Finally, the Ibbenese were forced to abandon the area after Khal Dako burned the city and a large portion of the surrounding countryside, earning the nickname Dragon of the North. Further south, other Khals led their warriors to the Kathi city-states of the Red Waste, conquering all but Karth, which was protected by its massive triple walls. Many even tried to cross the Bone Mountains to conquer the rich and exotic lands of the east, but were halted at the cities of Bayasabad, Shamiriana, and Kayakayanaya, which blocked the 3 roads leading through the mountains, never able to make it past their walls. After raining destruction upon vast swaths of territory, the Dothraki war chief Khal Temo decided to push further west and invade the free cities. At the Battle of Cohor, also known as the Battle of the 3000, the city-state of Cohor hired the Bright Banners and Second Sons mercenary companies, who along with their city defense forces, engaged the Dothraki horde of 25,000. And while they inflicted heavy damage, killing 5,000 of their enemy, the Cohori forces were defeated in the first day of fighting, with the sellswords fleeing from the battlefield and abandoning the city. However, reinforcements soon arrived, with an envoy sent to Slaver's Bay, returning with 3,000 Unsullied warriors. The Unsullied have long been considered some of the greatest soldiers in the world, castrated and trained their whole lives for war. During the final day of fighting, the Dothraki were so confident in their impending victory, they did not bother to use strategy in battle, instead simply charging with their cavalry directly into the lines of heavy infantry, expecting to easily break their formations. But the discipline and ferocity of the Unsullied allowed them to resist the aggression, repelling 18 cavalry charges and 3 archer attacks. After losing over 12,000 warriors, including their leader Khal Temo and his sons, the Dothraki surrendered. The horse lords were known to grow their hair long, adding bells to their braids as a mark of victory in battle. And so after their loss to Cohor, those left alive marched through the city gates and cut off their braids, throwing them to the ground as a symbol of their defeat and dishonor. Of the 3,000 Unsullied who fought that day, only 600 survived, yet they so impressed the Cohori government that the city became permanently defended by an Unsullied army. This ended the western migration of the Dothraki, but they continued to dominate the lands of central Essos, living as nomads, establishing Vez Dothrak as the only permanent city, located near a lake they called the Womb of the World and the Mother of Mountains. The rest of the territory, including the many cities and settlements conquered, were razed to the ground, over time becoming grassland, resulting in the large area between the Bone Mountains and free cities to be named the Dothraki Sea. Their people consider the horse a fundamental part of their culture, relying on the animals for food, transportation, clothing, and craft work, as well as making an alcoholic drink from fermented horse milk. They even incorporated the horse into their superstitions and religion, worshipping a horse god and believing in a prophecy that states a great warrior will be born to them, uniting their people to conquer the world. Some also believe that the stars themselves are horses made of fire, galloping across the sky. The Dothraki have come to associate their lives and livelihood with horses, so much that they look down upon those who do not ride, and fear the sea because their mounts will not drink its waters. The Dothraki organized themselves into war bands known as Khalasars, led by a mighty chieftain known as the Khal. These rulers must prove themselves ferocious in battle and would remain in power as long as they were healthy and strong. Should a leader ever become so infirm he is unable to ride a horse, his authority over the group dissolves. The Khal is guarded by a group of elite and fiercely loyal warriors called Blood Riders, who live and die alongside their rulers, only permitted to outlive their Khals if they need to avenge his death, but then expected to die once their task was complete. The Khalasar itself is divided into smaller units called Khas, which are led by the Khal's chosen captains, known as Khos. After the death of a Khal, his son and heir, known as the Khalaka, may inherit the Khalasar, but if he is too young or weak, the Khos may fight amongst themselves for leadership, killing the former Khalaka to eliminate him as a rival. The Khas may also choose to simply break away and form their own Khalasars, with their Khos becoming Khal. Although Dothraki warriors were experts in mounted warfare, they often fought shirtless or with leather vests, considering armor cowardly. They were also known to use whips, curved bows, and curved swords called araks. Women were largely treated as property by the patriarchal society. However, a Khaleesi, which was the wife of a Khal, was treated with more respect. These women were sent to live in Vez Dothrak after the death of their husbands, where they joined the Dosh Khaleen, a group of widowed women serving as sages and advisors to the Dothraki Khalasars and their Khals. Vez Dothrak was considered sacred ground, and so it was forbidden to spill blood, meaning that even rival Khalasars had to cease their hostilities once in the city. It was also a busy trade market, as merchants from both east and west made their way to Vez Dothrak, offering gifts to the Khals they encountered for protection as they crossed the Dothraki Sea. The raucous and carefree nature of the horse lords meant they often settled disputes with fights to the death, especially during wedding ceremonies, where rape and murder were celebrated activities. Other traditions and customs of their people include a belief that the number 13 is bad luck, as is touching a dead body you did not personally kill. They also believed magic was unnatural, reviling witches and wizards. The Dothraki instead valued physical strength, known to discard malformed children and cripples, leaving them behind to be devoured by feral dogs. They also expected men and women of the Khalasar to ride their mounts at all times, even expecting pregnant women to ride until close to giving birth. Believing that a man who does not ride is no man at all, wagons were only used by children, cripples, eunuchs, slaves, and the elderly. Although Dothraki medicine was fairly primitive, they kept barren women as herbalists, practicing with potions and spells, as well as eunuch slaves who used knife, needle, and fire. After their conquest of central Essos, they continued to live as they had for centuries within their territory, often raiding nearby towns, collecting slaves, and warring with each other for supremacy. One of their favorite targets were the peaceful shepherds of Lazar, becoming a frequent victim of their attacks. However, they also accepted tributes, sometimes threatening to invade the free cities or other territories until paid to leave. And while the Dothraki detested currency and bribes, they did accept gifts, like when young Viserys Targaryen tried to court the Khalasar of Khal Drogo, offering his sister Daenerys as a gift, in the hopes the Khal would use his army to invade Westeros on behalf of the exiled Targaryens. Although foreigners were rarely accepted accepted into a Khalasar as anything other than slaves, the famous Braavosi adventurer Terio Erastes was granted the privilege of becoming a guest of Khal Dako, living with them for a time and witnessing his sacking of the city of Ibish. Terio then wrote about his experiences in the chronicle Fire Upon the Grass, where he also described the fall of Khal Dako, killed by a young Khal Temo who murdered the man's wives and children, then cutting off his hands, feet, and genitals, burning them before the withering remains of the former war chief. A special thanks to all those who contribute to Civilization X, like Fabian, Keen Eye Flowers, Killian, Shadowcat, and Nate Strong, the Liberator. If you would like to help Civilization X, click on the Patreon link, and please be sure to like and subscribe, and click on the links to see more.